like that, thought Frances. In her mind she could see her mother, tall and elegant, with the skirt of her coat swirling regally around her legs as she walked. Frances ached as she thought of Ma's patched and faded clothes and shabby shawl. She wished with all her heart that she could buy a bottle-green coat for her mother, but she knew that a coat like that would cost much more than all the money she made in a month. Near the intersection of Fifth and Broadway, Frances nearly bumped into a girl of her own size who was looking into a shop window. The girl wore a flared pale blue velvet coat and matching bonnet, and her hands were tucked into a white fur muff. "Look, Mama," the girl said to the woman who stood next to her. "Look at the doll in the pink dress." Frances looked too at a doll with a creamy china face and blue glass eyes, dressed in a pink silk dress made with dozens of tiny tucks and pleats and trimmed with ribbon rosettes. Frances gasped aloud. Oh, the wonder of her! The girl in blue glanced at Frances and smiled. For an instant they shared the same delight in the elegant doll. But the woman turned toward Frances with a look of horror and disgust. She tugged at the girl's hand, yanking her away. She whispered to the girl, but Frances could catch some of the words. "Do not talk to one of those children." Frances turned away from them, burning with humiliation. She stared with frustration at her own reflection in the window, seeing what the woman had seen. A barefoot girl with tattered, mud-splattered clothing. "It's not fair," Frances cried to herself. She rested her forehead against the cold glass, embarrassment erupting into hot tears that ran down her cheeks. She hated being so poor. It wasn't her fault. A rough hand gripped her shoulder and spun her around. A policeman demanded, "What mischief might you be up to?" Frances stiffened with fear. "No mischief," she managed to stammer. His voice softened as he saw her tears. "Then be along with you, girl. Go about your business. Don't dawdle here with your betters where you don't belong." Frances turned and broke into a run. Why should she be treated as though she had done something wrong? Wasn't she allowed even to stop and rest? Her betters? Just because they wore nicer clothes? "It's not fair," she sobbed aloud. "Look where you're going," a top-hatted gentleman barked at her. She stumbled against the cane he thrust out, then angrily turned and grabbed it from his hand, tossing it to the ground. "How dare you, he sputtered, but Frances ran on. Heedlessly she dashed across streets, ignoring the clang of wagon and cab wheels against the cobblestones and the angry shouts of drivers. She darted through clusters of peddlers and shoppers as she hurried back to her job. Her chest hurt, and her stomach churned with shame and anger. All she wanted was to be with her mother. Ma, with her smiles and loving words, would make everything right again. By the time she reached Mr. Lomax's office, Frances was out of breath, but calmer. She delivered Mr. Waterfield's reply, then hurried for Mr. Lomax's office, thankful that he had made no mention of docking her wages again. She hurried to find her mother. She knew that Ma would be already hard at work, rubbing the brass on the ornate staircase that rose from the lobby to the second story of the office building on 23rd Street. The narrow two-story building was not as elegant on the outside as those in Mr. Waterfield's neighborhood, but its sweeping curved marble staircase and brass-trimmed teakwood balusters and balustrade made up for it. Ma swept some flyaway strands of hair from her eyes, looked up, and smiled at Frances, then blinked with surprise. "Frances Mary, it's wet and cold you are." Frances crouched beside her mother, who wrapped her arms around her daughter, briskly rubbing her back and shoulders. "A cab wheel hit a puddle," Frances said. "No harm. The running kept me warm." "Better now," Ma leaned back and smiled. Much, Frances said. There wasn't time to tell her mother how much warmer she felt just being near her, so she reached to squeeze Ma's strong, firm hands. Frances thought again about the beautiful green coat, and she clutched her mother's hands more tightly. Ma would be the first to say she would have no need for a fancy coat like that, but Frances knew that what Ma needed and what she deserved to have were not the same. Then the memory of the girl in the pale blue coat and the words her mother had